All right, boys, today we got AMD versus Intel. Which CPU is the fastest? So this is going to be a continuation of the last video where we checked the graphics card comparison. In this video, we're going to check the CPU comparison. 13900KS max overclock versus a 7800X3D max overclock. If you want to know the specs of the machines, go to the last video. Now for this video, we're going to swap out 4K and include 1080p. Yeah, it doesn't make much sense because we're using such high-end hardware. It's more just for funsies and scientific knowledge. You could think of it as one day when the 6090 Ti Ultimate Titan Edition comes out or whatever. If you're going to stay on the platform that you want to stay on now, which one should you get? And we are also using the same video settings of the last video. No FSR, no DLSS mods, no mods at all actually, no dynamic resolution, nothing. And as a bonus, just like the last video, we're going to try both graphics card vendors on both CPUs. So we got 4 different benchmark scenarios for you. The recorded benchmarks today were actually done live on kick.com/framechasers in front of about 200 people. So no shenanigans here. But go follow me over there if you want to come hang out with the community live. All right, so for the first one, let's do AMD versus Intel and Nvidia, because that's what everybody wants to see. What's the fastest? All right, so 1080p to start off here, and right away you can see that the Intel platform on the left with the NVIDIA 4090 is pulling quite a bit more frames, but you can also look at the power draw of both CPUs, and the Intel CPU is pulling about 100 watts more to do it as well. This section here, actually, the boys on stream told me to come here to record this part for the CPU benchmark, because as you can see, the GPU usage on both graphics cards is not pegged at 100%. So we, in fact, are CPU bound here on both platforms. Now, also, the 7900 XTX here is pulling about the same power as the 4090. And the reason for that is because the 7800 X3D is too slow to utilize the GPU more. So there's no power to be used here. Okay, so this next one here, we're actually doing 1440p. I'm going to speed this up a little bit to skip over it because we're actually hitting 99% usage on both platforms. So this has now turned into a graphics card benchmark more than a CPU one. Hence why we actually have to do 1080p. But for those of you curious, this was with the NVIDIA driver, the latest one, that is claimed to improve the NVIDIA performance by about 5 to 10%. And as you can see, the 4090 is actually beating the 7900 XTX here now. So the current standings are, across all 3 resolutions, 1080p, 1440p, 4K, the Intel platform, the 13900KS, with DDR5 8000 and the 4090 is faster on all of them. With the caveat being the Intel CPU pulls 100 watts more than the AMD one, but the NVIDIA graphics card pulls 100 watts less than the AMD one. Now, before we move on to the next section of the benchmarks here, I already know there's some idiot out there going to be like, but the AMD platform costs $1 million less, Zoofus. How do you explain that? Okay. We don't care about budget on this channel, unless it's a budget-specific video, obviously. But we only care about what is the fastest. That's it. Now, I'm not sure if anybody caught it, but there was one AM dip that we got recorded on one of the runs. Now, you can kind of introduce AM dip by whipping your mouse around, but we chose not to do that. This one was just legit during one of the runs. Let me rewind that for you. Now we're approaching the spot here, and you'll notice that on the right, the AM dip happens, and on the left, the Intel platform has no dip. Now the problem with this is it's recorded in 60 FPS. The dip only went down to 80 FPS. So the reason why I noticed it was because I'm playing on a 360 Hertz monitor. Oh, it just stuttered! It just fucking stuttered! It just AM dipped! Now, this is one of those things where you can believe me or you don't have to believe me. On this very topic, I made a post on Twitter talking about how I've been an esports player my entire life, So when it comes to any kind of micro stuttering or dipping or tearing, my eyes are insanely sensitive to such behavior. So it very may well be that a normie would not notice the AM dip, but that's also why esports pros trust me with their PCs so adamantly. Because when it comes to pros, an AM dip means they are losing money. So believe what you want. I'll leave affiliate links down below to all the products anyway. But there are AM dips in this game with the 7800X3D. Spoiler alert though, the 1440p results are the exact same because they're GPU bound in both scenarios anyway. So we're going to ignore those. But check out the 1080p results. It's super interesting. So here you can actually see that the 13900KS and 7900 XTX combo is annihilating the 7800X3D 4090 in 1080p, which is hilarious. So the AMD CPU is not fast enough to drive a 4090 in 1080p. Again, this goes back to the NVIDIA driver overhead. You have to have a far more powerful CPU to drive those NVIDIA drivers than the AMD drivers do. In fact, the craziest thing about this whole thing, the 13900KS is so fast that it's actually able to utilize the 7900 XTX in 1080p at 99% usage. So speaking of power draw, if you actually want to go back and check, I'm pretty sure the Intel CPU and AMD graphics card were pulling like 250 watts more than the other one. But hey, 250 watts for 20 FPS? Faster is faster. Don't be electricity bill poor, boys. All right, so now let's bring up the graphs. So you've got quite the variance here. When using a 4090 on both platforms, the Intel CPU wins by about 14%. When using a 7900 XTX on both platforms, the i9 now wins by 24%. So let me repeat that. The i9 13900KS in 1080p is 24% faster than a 7800X3D max overclock for max overclock. Now in 1440p, yeah, like I was saying before, this is much less of a factor. The i9 still seems to kind of squeeze out a 10% victory in the 1% lows over the 3D chip, but it's not going to make or break your gaming experience. I would much rather be concerned with that AM dip rather than a 10 FPS difference, if you know what I mean. Now, the interesting thing is here, this is an AMD sponsored title, right? And their own CPU for this game is basically an entire generation behind Intel CPU in a Max OC configuration. Now, one more time, I'm just going to say, yeah, I'm using an Apex motherboard. Yeah, I'm using 8000 megahertz RAM. And yeah, the Intel platform does cost a lot more. But for 25% performance difference, I know a lot of people that would pay way more than what this costs to get that 25%. At some point, the hardware enthusiast has to realize that there are people out there, the people that I cater to on my channel, that don't have budgets, okay? They just want the fastest. Like, why do you think all these people are paying me $500 to overclock their systems to get another 10-15% out of it? Because they just want it. They just need to have the fastest at all costs. And hey man, I'm like that too. I put this dog shit tech cooler on my computer to get 200 megahertz more. It's enthusiast things, man. And coming back to the graphics cards for a second, it's cool to see the 7900 XTX be the fastest in 1080p. That's all good and dandy, but I don't think you would be buying that graphics card to be the fastest at the lowest possible resolution in one game. You know what I'm saying? Because the 4090 is still faster in 1440p and 4K. And not just this game, every single game. Anyway, guys, I hope you learned something in this video. And if you like the content, hit that subscribe button, do all that YouTube SEO stuff, like, share, subscribe, comment down below what CPU you have, and if you get the AM dip. And I'll see you guys over on Kick. Follow me over there. I'll see you guys in the Discord if you become a supporter. And Worst case scenario, I'll see you in the next one. Talk to you later. 9-inch luminous octopus tentacle. Whatever whatever floats your boat there, my guy, but oh no, hey, whoa. No judgment.